Welcome to the Deep Dive, the only place where we take the most impenetrable walls of text, dive right into the muck, and try to extract the most illuminating knowledge.
And today, we have quite a wall to get through.
We really do. Today, we are celebrating, or maybe just attempting to survive, a massive literary centenary, the 100th anniversary of Frederick Jallywacker's notorious short story, The Mooksville Clock Chaos.
Notorious is absolutely the right word.
Yeah.
For our listener, we are not just diving into a story. We're diving into what some critics have called a semantic singularity.
A semantic singularity.
I mean, Jallywhacker is the defining maximalist of his era. We're dealing with a text that is so dense, so layered in invented vocabulary, that even its fans described it as having muctudinous complexity.
Which is, you can imagine, quite the challenge.
That is.
And our mission, for you listening, is crystal clear.
Yeah.
We need to unpack this relentlessly dense work. We are going to try and translate the jargon, the semantic gymnastics, all these invented words, and just the sheer rhetorical firepower, and turn it into clear, digestible insights about, temporal distortion, and crucially, what happens when societal confusion becomes the main principle of government.
You're giving them the shortcut.
We're here to give you the shortcut to understanding Jallywhacker without having to suffer a deep, complex case of intellectual churlish hysteria yourself.
And we have exactly what we need for this deep dive. We've got the full, dense text of the Mooksville Clock Chaos, and we also have Jallywhacker's rather extraordinary and, frankly, a bit disturbing biography.
Right.
And we have to understand this up front. His literary style isn't just a medium for telling a story. It is the subject matter. He used this style, which he preferred to call gallimorphology, but his critics just dismissed as rhetorical argy buffoonery, to show how communication breaks down.
And how that breakdown helps institutions fail.
Precisely. We're searching for the core knowledge that's buried under all that complexity.
Because on the surface, the premise is a simple fable, right?
Yeah.
A broken town clock, some talking animals. But the author himself explained it. He said the story is actually a deep dive into something he called existential apericrasis.
And that term immediately throws down the gauntlet.
Right.
I mean, apericrasis suggests boundary-breaking, infinite chaos. This isn't just a simple municipal problem with a clock.
No.
No. We are dealing with a literary terrorist, if you will, who specialized in attacking the conventions of language. So before we can even set foot in Mooksville, we have to understand the man who deliberately built all these rhetorical roadblocks.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with that context then, because Jallywhacker's biography is essential. His life choices really do explain why this story is so aggressively difficult to read. He was born in 1875, and from the start he was, well, an incredibly idiosyncratic figure.
Yeah. His formative years were defined by what his biographer calls profound intellectual churlish hysteria.
Churlish hysteria. That's a key term. It tells us he wasn't just difficult by accident.
No, he was intentionally difficult. He believed that conventional intelligence was just, a performance, and he hated it. He rejected formal schooling very early on, specifically declaring that the typical reliance on simple definitions, like, say, defining time as the measurable passage of existence, was an act of educational totalitarianism.
Okay, wait. So he believed that if a definition was simple enough for a schoolhouse, it was intellectually lazy and therefore false. That is a huge premise to base your life's work on.
It is. But he was committed. He believed true reality was fundamentally complex and that any attempt to simplify it was a profound act of intellectual negligence.
So if simple definitions were wrong, what did he do instead?
He dedicated his time to something he created called applied pseudologicology.
Applied pseudologicology. So the exhaustive private study of flawed reasoning and rhetorical fallacies.
Right.
That sounds less like a field of study and more like training to be the ultimate online debater, Just constantly wielding broken arguments flawlessly.
You've completely hit the nail on the head. He wasn't just identifying bad logic. He was cataloging it, perfecting it, and eventually using the mechanics of faulty reasoning as the foundation for his entire narrative style.
Wow.
He genuinely believed that conventional language lacked what he called gallimorphology, the appropriate structure or form to describe true reality. For Jallywhacker, reality was jagged, it was contradictory, full of logical gaps.
So the language used to describe it should be the same.
Exactly. It should reflect that.
And if the existing language didn't work, if it lacked this necessary gallimorphology, he did the most predictable yet staggering thing. He invented his own dictionary.
It seems like the ultimate move of linguistic power, doesn't it? It's not just elitism. It's erecting a personalized barrier to entry for his own version of reality.
It was a calculated move, for sure. It ushered in what we call his era of extreme style. His prose became characterized by relentless sesquipedanticism.
The deliberate, aggressive use of very long, often obscure, or in his case entirely made-up words.
And this wasn't accidental fluff. It was serving a specific purpose. It was all part of his dedication to the acute art of paralogismatography.
Okay, you have to pause there. Let's break that one down. Acute art of paralogismatography.
The art of sharp word choices used for the writing of faulty reasoning.
So he was a masterful craftsman of bad arguments.
Exactly. He wasn't just vague, he was technically perfect in how he deployed broken logic. This dedication to linguistic density, it really peaked when he became a notorious practitioner of gongorismo in English.
Right. Gongorismo is a Spanish literary style, famous for its ornamental, very dense syntax.
And Jallywhacker took that maximalist tendency and just pushed it into what he called pure hypodifilcationism.
That phrase, hypodifilcationism, it really suggests that the complexity itself is the point, almost like a transcendent state.
Yeah.
It's the elevation of complexity to the point of pure abstraction, where the meaning is truly secondary to the linguistic structure itself.
So when the critics came along and, quite rightly, accused his work of being mere rhetorical argy-buffoonery, which is basically just pointless verbal combat and clutter, what was his high-minded defense?
Well, his defense was centered on another concept he coined, logomachycoddlism.
Logomachycoddlism.
It means coddling or lovingly indulging in linguistic fights and disputes. He asserted that the true artistic merit of literature lay not in clarity, but in the deliberate overcomplication of meaning.
So the obfuscation was the art form?
It was the art form because he believed that's the only honest way to approach a chaotic reality.
That's such a powerful and deeply cynical assertion. It's like he's saying, I am not interested in communicating with you. I am interested in demonstrating the complexity that you are too lazy to confront.
And that is the philosophical framework he uses for the Mooksville clock chaos, which just explodes onto the scene in 1925.
It brought him his greatest but also his most confounding fame. He was suddenly famous for being utterly unreadable.
And this established him as the unwilling sentimentalist of his generation.
The sentimentalist. The guard of intellectual boundaries. But his whole purpose was to tear those boundaries down with long words. How did he reconcile that contradiction?
Well, he didn't, really. He just became the unwilling figurehead for this certain kind of linguistic maximalism. He was constantly fighting against the simplistic interpretations of his work.
So when people asked him to explain the story,
he didn't say it was about, a broken clock. He said it was intended to demonstrate the societal impact of a localized but catastrophic chronosynclastic fission.
which is temporal division at its most aggressive. That immediately raises the stakes beyond a municipal crisis. The chaos isn't just local, it's a breakdown of the deepest, most fundamental structure time itself.
And Jallywhacker's just documenting exactly how society, through its own bureaucracy and language, handles that kind of cosmic breakdown.
Which leads us to his later life, and it's characterized by this profound sense of exhaustion with the chaos he created.
Yeah, the biography notes a descent into philosophical hebephlagmaticism.
Which is a mix of, youthful, reckless philosophical behavior combined with a severe phlegmatic indifference to the consequences.
It sounds like the ultimate artistic burnout. He spent his final decades trying to achieve something he called infinitestasy.
A state of perpetual, calm, ontological detachment. He was trying to find peace after inflicting a paracrisis on the literary world.
A profound contradiction, isn't it? The man who wrote the most violently chaotic, jargon-laden story ultimately retreated, consumed by valetudinalism, a deep, sickly concern over his own creative output.
He was worried about the unintended apparagression his fame caused. He was afraid the complexity he unleashed was spiraling beyond his original intent.
And that's the ultimate example of the dangers of ultra-crepidarianism, the habit of offering opinions and language far beyond the bounds of one's actual knowledge.
He created a system of language that ultimately overwhelmed even its creator. Okay, so with the author's philosophical intent firmly established, that is, intentional complexity designed to show reality's chaos, let's jump right into Mooksville and the inciting incident. The setting itself, Mooksville, is described as a place steeped in a peculiar civic mucktality.
Mucktality, I love that.
Okay.
It immediately sets the tone. This is a swampy, complicated, inherently messy municipal mindset where clarity is not just undervalued.
It's actively resisted.
Right. And the town's singular definition, its central icon, is the great Mookian time pedicle. It's described as a monument of pulchritudinous and ostentatious chronometry.
That description alone, pulchritudinous and ostentatious, is Jallywhacker's way of saying it's a beautiful, expensive eyesore. It's meant to look important, but its function is delicate and completely overwrought.
And its function is everything. The source material emphasizes that its delicate thermomolecular workings prevent calendrical enema apparent.
Temporal drift or slippage.
Right. And the town's entire existence, its very essence, its essential being, is contingent on the clock's univocalic operation. If the clock stops, Mooksville ceases to exist as a coherent entity. It's a place defined entirely by precise, singular time.
So the clock represents this rigid, fragile order that Jallywhacker felt was an illusion. And naturally, the first element of society he skewers is the government.
Of course.
We meet Mayor Fanny, a pig of voluminous girth who governs with profound insouciantiamist authority.
Authority built entirely on indifference and apathy. This is Jallywhacker's first great satirical target. The bureaucratic leader who is present in body, but completely absent in intellect.
She delegates all the significant matters to lackey-sycophantic functionaries. Sycophantic lackeys.
And focuses exclusively on subtrivial administrivia. She is the embodiment of administrative paralysis.
And her actions perfectly illustrate this. When the actual crisis hits, the breakdown of time itself, she is utterly absorbed in a 3-hour debate.
A 3-hour debate.
Over the optimal shade of pulchronatical cerulean for the new communal feeding troughs.
Yeah. It's just a devastating piece of satire. The entire foundation of their town is crumbling because time has stopped. But the mayor is worried about the aesthetic integrity and the specific blue-green hue of the pig troughs.
It demonstrates the tendency of bureaucracy to substitute complex, low-stakes aesthetic debates for high-stakes existential action.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the agent of pure chaos, the anti-order principle, Lumpy the chinchilla.
He's characterized by a womblitudinal gait, a wobbly, unstable walk, and his life is defined by inadvertent, fortuitous, chaotic acts. He is chaos personified, just waiting for the opportunity to destabilize order.
And his motivation is the perfect Jallywhacker blend of the pathetic and the grand, pernicious pusillanimia regarding promptness.
A harmful, chronic, debilitating fear of being late.
It's a crisis caused by a neurosis that exists only because the rigid system of time demanded it.
His crime, then, is an act of egregious crackpotentiosity. He uses a rickety scaffolding for a furtivism-fueled shortcut to get around the churlish loquacity of the front sentinel.
It sounds exhausting just to say it.
Evading the grumpy, silent watchman by using a crazy shortcut, fueled by stealthy ambition.
And the beauty of Jallywhacker here is that Lumpy, this clumsy agent of entropy, has completely internalized the official language of complexity. He uses the high-flown jargon of Mooksville to justify his reckless haste. And we have to read this carefully. This is his internal monologue.
Okay.
This is the only way to circumvent the churlish loquacity of the front sentinel. My current state is one of profound valetudinalism over my missed appointment, necessitating this eperodactylic measure.
So he's confessing to a profound sickly distress, the valetudinalism over being late, which requires an infinite boundary-breaking measure, the eperodactylic measure, to fix it.
Yes.
He justifies a terrible, simple mistake using sophisticated, complex terms. This is why Jallywhacker is a genius. The philosophy of a pericrasis is embedded right in the character's own thoughts. He's not just a chinchilla, he's an agent of existential chaos who happens to be late.
And the cataclysm follows immediately. Lumpy's discordable with the regulatory flywheel, that clumsy interaction, results in a cacophonodiscalational trauma. The clock seizes in terminal neocrepitude.
Terminal neocrepitude. So new death, new demise. The order system has fundamentally failed. This throws the Mookian day into a grievous engine.
A state of necessity or fate. The world is now beholden to whatever happens next because the established order is shattered.
And this brings us back to Mayor Fanny.
Of course.
When Jasper the Rabbit, a panicked aide, reports the mucklution and the spontaneous cacophonodiscalational event, she barely glances up from her color swatch.
She dismisses the whole temporal failure as nugacy transmogrification and temporal neoflosity.
Yeah, I have to ask you to clarify that one because this is where the satire lands so hard. Neoflosity literally translates to new fluff or nonsense, right?
Precisely. She weaponizes jargon to dismiss reality. She's using incredibly complex language only she or a true Jollywhacker enthusiast would understand, to essentially minimize the disaster as new fluff.
And instead, she worries that the trough paint has a worrying lack of gallimorphology and risks aesthetic philistentology.
She's worried about the integrity of the paint structure, but ignores the collapse of time structure. This is the core theme Jollywhacker is exploring. Municipal leadership uses linguistic complexity and aesthetic abstraction to ignore existential, system-level threats. The language, ironically, makes them less informed, not more.
It's the ultimate indictment of governing by distraction.
So the mechanical disaster is settled, but the civic disaster is just getting started.
Right. Once the clock fails, the societal need for blame immediately kicks in. The populace, a crowd of easily swayed Gabomishes and Gongoozlers,
Requires swift catharsis, and they are defined by this collective xanthophobitism.
Xanthophobitism, so excessive fear, suspicion, and paranoia.
Yes, they are terrified of this new unknown temporal state, and this fear immediately fuels the desire for blame. And the target, as in all good fables, is perfectly predictable. Golub the Sloth.
Golub is the perfect foil for Mooksville's obsession with efficiency. His natural slothful-acuitous predisposition and his state of hebephlegmaticism, that blend of sluggishness and indifference, make him the absolute easiest target.
He wasn't even capable of moving fast enough to be guilty of anything.
Exactly. But the narrative doesn't care about facts. It cares about narrative convenience. So Barnaby, the chief snologostropist,
The bellicose badger.
launches an immediate, vicious ad personam campaign. And this is where Jollywhacker really highlights the failure of public rhetoric.
Barnaby accuses Golub of profound churlish hysteria and poltroonish nosity. He's accusing him of that same intentional difficulty and cowardice that defined Jollywhacker himself, but he's applying it to a creature who is just slow.
He argues, through this corrosive argumentum ad populum, an appeal to popular belief, that only Golub's utter lack of assiduosification could have resulted in the catastrophic apparidacity.
The crime is literally invented to fit the available culprit.
And Golub is officially charged with the ignomigmatism of chronological ontortuity.
Let's just take a moment with that phrase, because it's bureaucratic poetry. The charge is the disgraceful marking, ignomigmatism, of time's twisted, tortuous path, chronological ontortuity.
That is maybe the most convoluted legal charge ever devised. It's a charge that relies on everyone agreeing to the definition of 5 made-up concepts.
It perfectly captures how the system survives. By creating legal language so dense that the original, simple, truth lumpy broke the clock, is completely irrelevant.
The trial commences, a spectacle of Mountablather's scateria.
A circus of nonsensical blather. And this is where we meet Zeke the Toad, Golub's defender. He's a character designed to exemplify Jollywhacker's life philosophy.
Zeke is a master of paralegismatography and relentless sesquipedanticism.
He is Jollywhacker's ultimate rhetorical weapon deployed within the text itself.
And Zeke's strategy is just brilliant in its sheer absurdity. Instead of offering evidence, he starts with this 10-minute verbose encomium of Golub's natural tranquility, using a complex 7-part anaphora and solipsis-laden constructions, specifically designed to bury the simple facts beneath sheer linguistic weight.
The goal is information overload, to cause paralysis.
And his core claim is a magnificent example of this obfuscation. It's a perfect demonstration of hypodifalcationism in action.
He states that assigning the corpus delicti, the body of the crime, to Golub is judicial totalitarianism so profound as to constitute an ignominigmaticon of the most virulent aperocynicism.
Wow.
And that the prosecution's case is dismissed as rhetorical anti-mythologism of pseudo-paradoxicalization.
Okay, let's translate that for everyone. He's saying the prosecution is stupid, doltilatrism. Their logic is a disgrace, ignominigmaticon, a virulent infinite absurdity, a paracynicism. And their case is a paradoxical lie against established concepts, antonomythologism.
All of that just to say the prosecution is wrong. And he uses words that require specialized knowledge to defeat a simple factual premise.
And amidst this onslaught of sophisticated nonsense, Golub, the defendant, offers his simple, actual defense.
Yes, the source is clear that this is a slow, languorous whisper. I did not commit. Merely engaging, deeply languorous act of groaklingality.
A completely honest, simple statement, a moment of genuine, albeit slow, clarity.
But this is Mooksville. Zeke, the master rhetorician, cannot let simple truth stand.
He immediately reinterprets it through the maximalist lens.
Zeke spins groaklingality.
Yeah.
a made-up term for just languorous resting, into deep introspection into the teleological implications of arboreal ascent.
Oh, come on.
He declares that Golub lacked the necessary mens rea, the guilty mind required for criminal intent, and was exhibiting the antithesis of pugnacious science.
What's fascinating here is that the facts don't matter at all. The truth of the crime is irrelevant. What matters is the complexity of the legal interpretation.
Jellywhacker is showing that in a bureaucratic state, the simple factual statement can always be defeated by the dense, sophisticated reinterpretation. This is the definition of governing through logomacacodlism.
And it links back perfectly to Jellywhacker's own life. Golub exhibits that same blend of sluggishness and indifference, that hebephlegmaticism that defined the author's later years. But in Mooksville, even that is twisted into a profound, complex act of philosophical defiance by the very system that wants to destroy him.
And while the legal system is collapsing under the weight of its own rhetoric, the original chaos generator, Lumpy, is working on phase 2 of the disaster.
He is driven by self-flagellating valetudinalism, a punishing guilt, and a severe case of muckfacentia.
A pervasive, sickly feeling of guilt over the mess he made.
So he decides the only solution is, naturally, to try and rewrite history. He builds a time machine, which he calls the automatron.
And the description of this machine is critical. It's a chaotic assemblage of a rudimentary cryobot and an unstable thermionical valve oscillator. The source rightly calls it automatrontology gone completely awry.
Automatrontology gone completely awry. It's technology serving a chaotic rather than an ordered function. And Lumpy's goal isn't just to fix the clock mechanically. It's a profound, narcissistic, philosophical endeavor.
He seeks flextiposition back to the moment before my discordable, for infinite nostalgia for a perfect timeline.
Infinite nostalgia. He wants eternal memory of a moment that he ruined. Despite the high risk of a parochrosis, the absolute collapse of boundaries and order, he is driven by this romantic desire for personal perfection.
And this attempt at personal time travel inevitably causes the truly catastrophic event. He violates epistemachronicity, the very knowledge structure of time, and causes the Chronicin classic fission.
This is the point where the municipal disaster officially becomes an existential one.
The foundation of reality itself is now unstable. And the first sign of this deep temporal anomaly is Lumpy encountering his own failure. He's met by a flotsam flibbertigibbet,
which is a vibrating, transparent doppelganger known as an infinigram of his past multitudinous failures. This is Lumpy's past shame manifesting in the present.
Flotsam Lumpy, the physical manifestation of his guilt, warns him immediately that his attempted delocalization is causing dismutational mania and risks the Apeirogon paradox.
This is Jellywhacker using his own elaborate, invented vocabulary to describe a time travel disaster, the paradox of an infinite, non-existent shape causing reality to distort. The danger is not just changing the past, it's corrupting the underlying structure of reality itself.
But Lumpy, committed to his mad science, his automatrophenia, dismisses the warning as mere pseudo-fictional subfrictions and seeks infinite essentia. He is so determined to achieve a perfect existence that he ignores the physical manifestation of his own failure.
And the two fragments collide and vanish.
And reality is now irrevocably broken, and the consequences spill directly into the trial.
The impact is immediate in the courthouse. The trial is now afflicted by spectrobusins, a sensory hum and chaotic temporal feedback loops, which the narrative defines as the infinite testrum of the quid nuncological now.
That phrase suggests the present moment is oscillating wildly, unable to define itself.
So temporal tautology sets in. Speeches, moments, even the judge's gavel hits start to repeat.
This isn't just confusing. It undermines the entire premise of jurisprudence, which relies on a linear sequence of evidence. And then we see the profound Mookian metamorphosis. Mayor Fanny spontaneously shifts between her original porcine form and a ventripotentium medieval gabbalist obsessed with picaroon Galatian.
A ventripotentium medieval gabbalist is a what? A pot-bellied medieval tax collector obsessed with pirate-like extortion. So her physical form changes, but her essential governing, priority, low-level, greedy administrative focus remains the same.
The temporal chaos reveals the fundamental corruption, but it doesn't fix it.
And the temporal chaos becomes so profound that it attracts the attention of higher powers.
An intervention from the future arrives. The cryobot cadre, 3 robotic practitioners of interferobotics. They're here to contain the ripples, diagnosing the situation as catastrophic femtoratoricity, a disaster operating at the smallest, fastest scale of time.
Their goal is to initiate heuristicide to preserve the timeline's univogalactic integrity.
They want to kill the chaotic process to save the linear single path of time. This is the moment of pure, objective, corrective logic entering Mooksville.
And Cryobot Beta delivers the most objective assessment possible. It declares that the court is in a state of terminal pseudologicology, and the corpus delicti is invalid due to temporal imperi delicto.
Meaning both the clock failure and Lumpy's interference are equally at fault temporally. This is the truth, delivered by unbiased machine logic.
But objective logic has no defense against Zeke's masterstroke, logomachy caudalism versus AI.
Zeke sees the robots not as a factual threat, but as rhetorical tools. He immediately engages in elaborate blandishment, calling their analysis qualiantometrics.
He spins their arrival, their absolute evidence of a temporal crime, as proof that the clock failure was temporal, not slothful, making them an amicus curiae delivering a complex infinitogram.
He uses pure sophistry, hyperzeugus, and severe paralogismatography, a massive overflow of words and flawed logic to overwhelm the highly logical AI.
And it works. The robots, confronted by the density and complexity of Zeke's language, which cannot be parsed by their clean binary logic, are forced to begin dialectic calibration.
They're neutralized. Jallywhacker is showing that highly complex, meaning-dense, human rhetoric, even when it's fundamentally false, can defeat the most advanced logical system intended to enforce order.
It's a terrifying commentary on the resilience of deliberate obfuscation. It suggests that if you make an argument complex enough, even if it's wrong, you can overwhelm the instruments of truth, which are designed to seek clarity. We've reached the absolute climax of the trial. The system is buckling under Flix-Tapparian confusion. Golub is exhausted, whispering of the mulligrubs and neocripitude. He is literally ready to die from the exhaustion caused by sesquipedalian texturology.
The sheer oppressive weight of long-worded text.
And just as Golub is about to succumb to this rhetorical death, Lumpy materializes midair, clutching a clock hand.
He bears an apparodoodle on his forehead, a mark of infinite chaotic potential, and is in a state of autometrophenia, a madness caused by his own malfunctioning machine.
And he finally admits the simple truth. The one fact everyone has been avoiding for chapters. He is the culprit of the apocrisis, caused by a thermionic level feedback loop of the cryostatism, leading to mucopescence.
He confesses, in simplified, if still dramatic, terms, his stupid machine broke time.
It's the moment of maximum clarity. But the court, steeped in flux-taperon confusion, cannot process the simple, factual confession. The judge, whose head is now a granite Zounderkite,
A petrified stone.
slams the gavel, proving that jurisprudence has literally petrified into senselessness. The machinery of justice is physically incapable of accepting the truth.
And Zeke, ever the master of Cactatio Benevolentiae, the art of capturing goodwill, performs his final act of maximalist sophistry.
He doesn't deny the confession, he incorporates it. He calls Lumpy's simple statement teleological philology and evidence of a self-correcting anomal actimetry.
Lumpy is no longer a criminal. He's reframed as a temporal Apillion, a tragic hero of eperogomania.
Zeke's ultimate conclusion is that no factual verdict can be reached sine qua non a certiorari to the infinitestacy of the entropoetical cosmos.
Translation. They need a legal review from the universe itself.
Okay.
The case is dismissed, not based on innocence, but on infinite complexity.
And while the legal system collapses under this absurd conclusion, Mayor Fanny provides the final governmental resolution. She emerges, having finally selected her gingham pattern,
Of course she has.
and declares the entire matter ultra vires, beyond the scope of her mactocracy. She resolves the crisis not by jurisprudence, but by insouciance.
Apathy wins the day. The clock's permanent fate, according to the government, is pure neophlosity. It's nonsense, therefore it is irrelevant, and therefore it is solved.
Jellywhacker is arguing that when the truth is too complex or uncomfortable, bureaucracy simply uses language to label the crisis as administrative nonsense and moves on.
And the story concludes with the establishment of the apero-torturous status quo. Golub is released, granted the impunity of total confusion. He can't be guilty if nobody, not even the robots, knows what the crime was.
And Golub gives the story's singular, profound moment of clarity. A tiny whisper of truth amidst the roar of jargon right as he's released.
All of this, sesquipedigon, was rather jejunction. All of this long-worded, complex chaos was essentially trivial or empty.
But that clarity is immediately swallowed. Lumpy vanishes, perpetually trying to fix the muckrament through apparogrammancy experiments, doomed to a cycle of chaotic scientific error.
Meanwhile, Zeke, achieves lasting fame through his hypodiflicationism. He's hailed as Mooksville's new sentimentalexualist. The man who used language to obscure truth is celebrated as the guardian of intellect.
And the great Mookian time pinnacle remains perpetually seized, a monument to the catastrophe.
And Mooksville, this is the final, chilling thought, is now governed by pervasive kitschpathology. Order is maintained not by facts, not by time, but by the rigorous application of complex yet meaningless language. The system survives because the complexity prevents anyone from truly understanding that the system is fundamentally broken.
It's a state of comfortable, aestheticized pathology. That's a devastating conclusion. The crisis, the breakdown of time, was less damaging than the linguistic response to it.
Wow. We have traversed the multitudinous complexity of the Mooksville clock chaos.
We have. And reviewing the sheer density of the vocabulary, the epirocrasis, the logomicacodalism, the neocripitude, it's clear that Jallywhacker's genius was not just in writing a chaotic story, but in creating a fully realized language of chaos that precisely mirrored the failure of Mooksville itself.
It's a language designed to be a weapon against clarity.
Absolutely. And the story is the ultimate maximalist warning about ultracrepidarianism, the pervasive practice of offering opinions and using language far beyond your actual expertise.
In Mooksville, everyone, from the mayor to the celebrated lawyer Zeke, is guilty of it. They govern through logomicacodalism, preferring the fight and the jargon over true insight.
And if we look at the real-world analog for a moment, the connection between existential epirocrasis and modern policy complexity becomes terrifyingly clear.
It does. Jallywhacker used the clock collapse, the physical temporal distortion, to show how bureaucratic complexity and linguistic density, that relentless sesquipedanticism, can paralyze a society far more effectively and permanently than the original catastrophic event.
That's the critical knowledge nugget here. The physical time stopped, but the societal collapse was only solidified when complexity replaced truth. The muctality of Mooksville survives because its citizens, through their fatigue, accept the sophisticated nonsense.
They value Zeke's hypodiflicationism over Gullib's simple, honest truth. It's just easier to accept the complex lie than to fight for the simple, unpalatable truth.
And we have seen how Mooksville achieved infinitestasy, not the calm, ontological detachment that Jallywhacker himself sought later in life, but a state of perpetual, chaotic paralysis maintained by total aestheticized confusion. They are stuck in a comfortable rut of being wrong but sounding smart.
And that raises a provocative thought for you, the listener, to carry forward into your own meetings and reading. When does sophisticated language, whether in policy papers, technology specifications, or legal precedent, stop clarifying reality and start actively obscuring it?
When do we stop fighting for clarity and simply accept the language of complexity, leading us into our own state of perpetual, comfortable kitschpathology, where everything looks organized and beautiful, but nothing actually works?
Something to mull over the next time you encounter a long word that seems to mean absolutely nothing.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Jallywhacker's magnificent, maddening chaos.